In this video, we're going to tell you the horror story about insulin resistance, what it is, how you get it, and how we got rid of it. Welcome to the Liz and Scats channel. Hi, I'm Liz. I'm a clinical holistic therapist, yoga and meditation teacher. And in this video, we're going to show you how we got rid of our insulin resistance using a keto and intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting lifestyle. During this journey, we have removed Scats's symptoms of type 2 diabetes, which is incredible. And we are now returning to a rude health. So to help us, to help you, please do this.
Subscribe, and click on the bell.
Hello, Keto Bonitos and fasting friends. It's lovely to see you again. Today we are talking about insulin resistance, sometimes also known as metabolic syndrome, although it's a little bit more complicated than that. Just to clarify, metabolic syndrome is where you have insulin resistance, but also you might have high blood pressure and risk of high oxidized LDL cholesterol as well. The health risks for metabolic syndrome are very, very similar to insulin resistance because they're all tied in together. So heart disease, stroke, dementia, all of those are all in the same box. So insulin resistance is actually a part of metabolic syndrome. But can you be insulin resistant without being overweight? The average American eats over 200 grams of carbohydrates every single day. For example, oatmeal or porridge with strawberries and almonds and soy milk equals about 45 grams of carbohydrates, just that one meal. Sandwiches for lunch, 50 grams of carbohydrates, depending on what you put in the middle of your sandwiches. So it's easy to see how we have become dependent on carbs in our everyday lives and how we eat them to become full up. When we eat carbohydrates, they stimulate the pancreas to produce insulin, but much, much more than when we eat proteins or fats. And the spike from the insulin when we eat carbohydrates is almost double that of protein. What goes up must come down. Unfortunately, carbohydrates, which turns into glucose, ends up not filling you up for as long as we would like. So we end up being hungry far quicker than if we had a low carb, high fat diet, for example. This is why when we eat carbohydrates in a higher quantity than any other type of food group, we're more likely to snack and to have more on our plates than we would normally do. That's why when we eat carbohydrates as the largest food group in our diet, we tend to eat more snacks and we'll also end up eating far more on our plates than we should have. We're now more aware of the effect that carbohydrates have on our brains. When we eat carbohydrates, especially foods high in sugars, we actually get a high, like we would if we smoked a cigarette or had some alcohol or take drugs. It's all in the same part of our brain. When we eat these foods, the brain really likes the feeling because it releases a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Now, unlike carbohydrates, proteins and fats don't actually release as much dopamine into the body system as carbohydrates do. And with sugary carbohydrates and breads and pastas, the high that we receive when we eat those foods never goes away. So we just constantly crave them, and in effect we do become addicted to them. Now, there are some carbohydrates that don't produce that same craving and feeling in the brain, and those are the cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower. Poor old broccoli doesn't register on the dopamine level at all. So carbs are actually addictive in nature, and when we don't have them, we do actually crave them. This is where we end up heading to the biscuit barrel or where the bread is kept or the cake tin. So how does all this tie in with insulin resistance? With a prolonged high carbohydrate diet, your poor old pancreas has to pump out so much insulin to deal with all the blood sugar. Coupled with the fact that we now not only eat 3 meals a day, we're snacking in between, and this panics the pancreas, making it produce more and more insulin. So insulin is responsible for tidying up all of the glucose in the blood. And with all of our snacking, we're just creating way more mess. Eventually, the cells of the body become completely overwhelmed with the toxic levels of insulin in our blood. And so the cells absolutely close their doors to receiving any more glucose within their own little walls. With nowhere else to go, the glucose just floats around in our bloodstream, and of course the poor old pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin just to get rid of it all. Round and around we go. Insulin is very good at tidying up the glucose, but what happens when the cells are no longer receiving any glucose? There's only one thing that insulin can do now, and that is turn the glucose into fat. And the first place that it stores the fat is around your internal organs. So everywhere from your heart, your liver, your kidneys, and the entire digestive system. Now, when there is no more room left around your internal organs, then insulin will start storing the excess glucose as fat in your belly. Now we start to finally see the outward signs of insulin resistance within your own body. As your belly gets larger, your clothes don't fit as well as they used to, it's going to start looking fairly obvious. We're getting into quite dangerous territory here. All of your internal organs are now wrapped in a layer of fat, so they're not working at peak efficiency anymore. You're going to start seeing yourself becoming larger and larger, and the outward signs of obesity will start to show. All this puts an enormous strain on your health, and we're not able to function as well as we would without all of that fat around our organs. So our heart is struggling, our liver is struggling, our kidneys are struggling. This means we're more likely to harbour more toxins within the body and just generally not feel well. Also, our immune system is damaged by this point. We actually cannot function well, and we will find that we're getting more coughs and colds and things like that. So here we are with increased issues. Perhaps you've been diagnosed with one of the many symptoms of insulin resistance, like type 2 diabetes, for example, like SCATS was. So what do we do now? The health risks for those with insulin resistance are really quite scary. So here's the good news. We found that actually not eating as many carbohydrates as we used to can reverse insulin resistance fairly quickly, and therefore reduce the fat from around the internal organs and improving our health. Studies have shown that even by reducing your carbohydrate intake per day to less than 100 grams can greatly improve your health. Scats and I, on the other hand, decided to go for it big time. We decided that his health was way more important and that we needed to get his insulin resistance under control as quickly as possible. And the best way to do that is with a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting combined. Poor Scats was at the point where he would have had to have been taking medication every single day for the rest of his life. We didn't want that anymore, so this is why we took such radical action. So if you're interested about finding out about our ketogenic and fasting lifestyle, then please look in the description below. There may be even a card come up in the corner there taking you to one of our other videos describing in fine detail exactly what you have to do to go and do a ketogenic and fasting lifestyle. Insulin resistance is the illness of this generation, and there are major problems in the world, and it's putting huge strain on our health services and even increasing the risk of more serious symptoms of viruses like COVID-19 and influenza, as it lowers the immune response as well. So here is a little bonus. this Wednesday, the 14th of August at 8 p.m. GMT +1, so that's IST or BST, British Summertime, we are going live and we are ready to take all of your questions about anything we've covered in this or any of our other videos. We love hearing from you, so please leave us some comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. In the description are links to our filming kit, all of our tech, our walking boots and hats and all the rest of the things that you can see on our channel. So by clicking on those and buying, you're actually giving us a tiny little commission and you don't pay a penny extra. Also now have a merchandise shop, lots of t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and things like that for you to buy on Teespring. So if you look in the description, there'll be another link down there just for that. All these things are here for us to generate a little bit of income so that we can do more work and more research and help you to get healthy. So thank you for watching all the way to the end of this video. We hope to see you soon. Join us live on Wednesday.